We're shooting a show. Can we do this another time? Yeah. All right, I'm happy to do that. I'll get a lawyer and we will sit down and have a conversation. We'll schedule a meeting and we'll sit down with my lawyer. I didn't let you in.
That's Gavin McInnes, leader of the Proud Boys, doing one of his shows. And someone busted in the room and absolutely interrupted his broadcast and took him out. In fact, he was raided by the FBI. Maybe. Let's go to some details because this story has had different back and forth and different people revealing one thing or another. It's all blowing up in his face. Let's find this out. His associates and FMs, they did think this was happening because despite that acting job, I mean, you're gonna believe him, right? Associates of McInnes, such as comedian Josh Denny, claimed later that day that the far-right figure was rotting away in jail for daring to question authority. Just got off the phone with our people. It's not a bit, is what Josh wrote. Gavin was against going to January 6th. He was against Charlottesville and told Proud Boys that they were out of the club if they went. But he's rotting away in jail because he dared to question authority. So the legitimacy of this whole thing is definitely in question. Police in New York, where McInnes lives and works, denied taking him into custody. No announcement were made by the federal law enforcement either. Court records also failed to show that McInnes had been charged. So there's another comedian, as I'm talking about, Ben. We're gonna fill this up with a whole bunch of comedians. This far-right comedian, I guess is the way you can describe him. His name is Owen Benjamin. And he said it was a prank. He's a whole stage thing. Maybe they battle out these comedians. So by the way, Miami Against Fascism tweeted this whole thing out, retweeted what it is that Benjamin was talking about. And he said, this is new. Proud Boy founder Gavin McInnes' on-air FBI raid and presumed arrests were apparently faked. And they talk about Owen Benjamin. Let's look at the details of this back and forth that Owen posted. He said this started with McInnes saying, prank, don't tell. You're gonna reveal it's a prank? Because I have friends writing blogs about it. McInnes responds, never. So you're just gonna pretend the FBI raided your studio? Tons of people are texting me, freaking out. I never said they did, he responded. It's again true. Then McInnes asked, did you spill the beans? Looks like you did. We're done. What does that mean? We're done, like I'm never speaking to you again. This conversation's over. We're done with this whichever way this thing works. But there's the third comedian that came in who's looking to back up McInnes' story, even if it is fake. And he said this. Any comedian that puts pride and principle over creativity, think about this, creativity, innovation, and humor is serving the wrong master. Those are called evangelists, not comedians. And any comedian that takes another guy's bit before it's finished is just a jealous, bitter C word. That's weird. Is that how these things work? Do you have like battles with other comedians, Ben, where you may post something, you have a bit. You have this one bit where you're like, everybody look, the police broke in my house, shot my dog, and they took me out in handcuffs, and now I'm in prison as I broadcast from my studio. Is that a bit?
It's not only not a bit, I mean, it could be a bit, but it could be a malintended, immoral bit to try to grift and mislead people. Definitely. But it's very telling there what Denny says in that last statement of what the far right comedian says. And that's an oxymoron in and of itself. There's nobody with any sort of joke that's on the right, any sort of comedic skills on the right, let alone one on the far right. But he says, how dare you have principles over humor? You can have humor, and comics absolutely defend the bit over almost anything, except if you're a good person, over the truth and over morals that might freak people out or put people into a panic. That's when the comedy bit should end and your life should continue. But this is more inside about comics than you might even realize. I know Owen Benjamin. He used to be a friend of mine, the one that outed these texts. He has become a racist troll that was kicked out when he left the comedy world because he couldn't make it in the comedy world. He then moved to New York, was kicked out of New York for using the N-word at town council meetings. He then moved to, I think, Oregon or Washington State, where he's a pariah living on a farm, and he's broadcasting to this fan base he's trying to build of racists and anti-Semites and bigots. He does these live broadcasts literally denying the Holocaust, calling Jews grabbers. I went on to one of his broadcasts recently and tried to call him out on some of this, and he immediately ended his broadcast and started texting me some personal things that I won't blast on the air right now. But this guy is a malintended, horrible, horrible person who is literally just trying to chase a dollar and doing it by tearing down not only the concept of truth or goodness, but literally trying to tear down individual groups. He can't be trusted, but of course he's now swirling around with a bunch of other far right people that also can't be trusted and are just trying to grift the public for an extra dollar and a little bit of fame and some more clicks. So none of these people can be trusted. They're all a bunch of garbage people that are hanging out in the same circle together. And do I regret having Owen on my podcast back in the day? Yes. Do I regret having over to my parents' house for dinner, one of the few comedians ever welcomed into my home? Yes, I do. But he wasn't far right then, and he was just appearing in Adam Sandler movies and hanging out, and then took a dark turn for the worse. So I have a little bit of a personal connection to this story.
No, this is crazy. No, this is crazy. Hold on. This is crazy. So this is what I wanted, because before we had Schuster on, he knew one of these other pundits, and he says, I know him because we were talking about like hip hop, and he was railing against it. He goes, this guy actually loves hip hop. Who do you think Owen Benjamin really is, considering what you thought versus what it is? Because I've always said this, the internet is littered with it, even folks who are unknown. The whole point of any of these social media folks is to, again, chase the dollar, number one. Number two, is this generating tons of money, this kind of grift? I know when you're grifting for like Donald Trump, it generates money because there's enough people that'll feed you money to keep grifting for him. But in these types of circles, is it worth it? And is it really him? Was he faking when he was your friend, and was he not faking now that he's doing the racism?
I mean, he seems to be just a fake in general and fakes at every turn. There is money to be made. I mean, unfortunately, as we've seen, people on the left that have truth and kindness and morality as a barometer, it's a lot harder to make money, and we still try to make a dollar when fighting these evil forces. But this guy got a pretty huge following by doing this. Apparently, and unfortunately, the state of this country right now is that if you divide us, if you make up lies about the current state of our country, if you make up lies about different groups, different ethnic groups, different religions, there is this racist undercurrent in this nation that loves it, that eats it up, that subscribes to his Patreon. He calls himself a bear, and his fans are the unbearables. It is a real problem. He's somebody that has always just shapeshifted to try to follow success, and we all want to be successful in life, but
it's the result of maybe unfettered capitalism, because no matter what, you got to make that money, you got to step on people and do whatever you can to survive, as costs of literal living are skyrocketing. Just keep
exactly right. It's like, look, we all want to make our way in the world, but if you do it at the expense of sowing division, you're a horrible person and you've given your life away.